Venerable said to Venerable Abong Rinpoche, how should a son of a lineage trained who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, wise men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, and emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form. Form also is none other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom, and have become true, complete Buddhas, perfectly complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teyata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisattva. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, Venerable Abong Rinpoche, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you were taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. Lamagan Gambo Jesun Jambe Yama Chakselo Gami Lotu Trini Tringa Nitananda Rakselwe Jini Dungun Jishin Sinchir Niti Toka Lepansin Gado Sipe Sura Marim Menton Dunya Jisewe Joso Kula Buchita Se Yangla Juchu Yangden Sun Joja Chirko Nyemo Nilong Leju Chajo Jose Chin Mari Musel Tugel Nyugu Juni Juze Rajunam Kune Tajin Sachu Tatsun Yuten Luzo Yase Tuwoku Chuta Chutan Chuni Yentre Dalu Musel Janel Yamadu Om Aravatsanadi Om Aravatsanadi Om Aravatsanadi Seden Chirki Terra Busaki Je Saje, Doma Tempe Nabo Ketuje, Yose Juba Chela Sovade, Yose Juba Chela Sovade, Japson Gudu Lama Dorje Chang, Yama Grande Shenye Sezone, Chodan Temo Mudu Zuzebe, Trenje Lama Nama Sovade, Trenje Lama Nama Sovade, Ranjan Sura Kula Tayemi, Kesa Taba Jube Juma Jum, Seve Jube Tage Sevaye, Senze Shinye Lama Sovade, Senze Shinye Lama Sovade, Jewa Kundu Yanga Lama Dan, Keme Chike Bela Long Shijing, Sadan Langye Yente Razone, Doje Changi Gopan Yuto Sho, Doje Changi Gopan Yuto Sho. Shodan Sochi Chonam La, Chancho Mayu Dani Kapsuchi, Lagi Chenye Jipe Sonanti, Dola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho. Shodan Sochi Chonam La, Chancho Mayu Dani Kapsuchi, Lagi Chenye Jipe Sonanti, Rola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho. Chodan Soti Chonan La, Chancho Badu Dani Kapsuchi, Lagi Chenye Jipe Sonanti, Rola Penche Sanje Drupa Sho.
First of all, one must turn oneself inward and try to reflect your own mind and motivations and to see your state of mind. Is your state of mind is in a normal condition or is there any other influences? So then one can ask the question, so where we are at this point. So then one could say that we are all here at your place, and purpose of being here is to listen to the Dhamma. So then second question comes here, says, where are you here? For what purpose you are here? What is the objective of being here to listen to the Dhamma?
And Loni don't imagine that people temper to be on Boyani, Lama no at the edge of Magnolia, Loja Chechi, Coco Jones, Magnolia, Maron Nation, catch a boy in the such a boy in the Sanganich.
So one must recognize oneself as a human beings raised by one's parents and try to identify one's human life as a precious life. So therefore, I must make this precious human life as purposeful as possible by following the unmistaken path shown by the great teachers, Buddha Shakyamuni, who once occurred in this planet Earth 2,500 years ago.
뒤에 나만 와대 버데 제대로서 소나 나로이 나로랑라 단다랑 따지 저와에는 말은 되버데 대화 이버데 세고 세장래 나네서데 소자 무슨 전전 되버네 대화래 되는 가속에 주미세데 기타다 바는 내가 내가 가던 들리질 하샤 네 다네서도 내가서 되제네 로 장기 대화네 현재 대화 타투 때인데 대화 줘도 지금 나로 제 투사리 제 이거 그도 제가 인사 많이를 뽑아줘야
So, why the Buddha actually taught this unmistaken path is we all have, it is the purpose of Buddha's teaching, of the teachings of what we call the unmistaken path, is to benefit all beings, as all sentient beings have a common desire to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. And this is not only as a human being has a desire to achieve happiness and overcome suffering, but also entire sentient beings, including down to the insects, have the same desire to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. So, however, we haven't been really able to achieve those happiness that we have been seeking. So from now on, I must listen to the teachings of the Dharma and make an effort in achievement of happiness and overcome suffering, that of oneself and all other sentient beings, so that not only just one's own achievement of pursuing achievement of one's own happiness, but also entire sentient beings, to leading entire sentient beings to the state of ultimate state of happiness.
현재는 된지기로와 sembal라 아니 카라나로네 sembal라 좋아지겠지. 이 레벨가나 라니는 디노에 버지 통해 sembal라 뽑아지 제지다. 이 조나래 그리고 센터래 그리.
So try to reflect your mind in such a way, and let one's mind have at least some kind of experience, special experience, by reflecting one's mind upon the above mentioned statements. So then, once you're able to have special feelings within you, then one will be able to see one's objective of being here and listening to the teachings of the Dharma. And this will then enable one to have a delighted mind. So in other words, you will become very delightful to be able to hear, to listen to the teachings of the Dharma.
이문에 저는 예빠든 게 두위로 레카를 마서는 랭고 야슈지 빼네. 센터를 가서 줘도지 좀나 좀 테마도는 저한테 새로 던져라. 이 앞에 쇼라만 거네 뭐 가셔야지 제투 제게 제고도 있었는데 와다 제고도.
So with this kind of encouragement, then one committed one, try to commit oneself to henceforth, if possible, I will, to always engage in the positive deeds and abandon negative deeds, and I will never engage in the deeds that are negative, which is that is harmful to self and other beings.
맞아 이제 다니시는 파매 쁘글라 여러 개 현재 저네 쁘근에 쁘고 파지 비질라 여러 상식도 거래선 단지 대비 다니는 거 알아. 배 대나기 지원 되는데 지원에 새로 던지도 좀비쇼로 나가셔야지 제게 인세에 라니 랭고비에요.
Just as being a positive and being a positive person is something that is common to all beings, human beings, which is the common advice given by the parents to their children. Try their best to lead their life in a positive way. So similarly, when it comes to the practitioner of the Dharma, not only that you will be committed to engaging in the practice, engaging in the positive deeds in this life, but also from lifetime to lifetime, one's on future life and subsequent future life, to engage in the positive deeds.
Since down the time about it, number 2 being more, the day you are, Gishan and Lomano, the Angela, Serotonin, the nation, the Jason, and Sanjay Komotoshang. John Lendevachi. And you run here, tell me, Junton, and German, and number 2 being one, then a son of one, and tell Sena Swan Bito, and the about the sending you.
So, just as all enlightened beings, in other words, countless beings who gain the state of enlightenment by relying upon the teachings of the Buddha. So, may I too today take this opportunity to engage in the practice of the Dharma, relying upon the teachings of the Dharma to gain the statement, to gain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other beings. So let's, meditate on this for 8 or 9, 10 minutes. Try to relax one's mind and calm one's mind as possible. So try to maintain calmness of one's mind, and whichever meditation that you may maintain, it is entirely up to your mental inclinations. Just follow your own mental dispositions. Whether you want to engage in the practice of strengthening the faith in Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha, or extending your compassion or generating compassion or love towards all other sentient beings. Whichever is more suitable for your mind, you can take either one of those two. It is very good that if one can maintain single-pointed meditation. With this the appropriate motivations that we have cultivated. Well, cultivation, on the basis of this cultivation of motivations, one is listening to the teachings of the Dharma, known as the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lam Rim Chenmo. So, this is such a precious teachings given by the Buddha Shakyamuni all the way to the great teacher Lam Rim Chenmo. The teachings that leads entire sentient beings to the state of ultimate state of happiness, everlasting happiness, in other words. So these teachings have maintained unbroken lineage from the teaching from the Buddha, then transmitted and then maintained by the great pandits of India, well then practiced by the great Mahasiddhas and translated by the great translators. And this is how the teachings of the Buddha, or the doctrines of the Buddha, have been maintained in an unbroken lineage, all the way from Buddha himself to the Lam Rim Chenmo. So it is not just because Lam Rim Chenmo is a very great scholar. It's not just by, he's not composed his text. It is by his own intellectual understanding, intellectual understanding of the teachings of the Dharma. But rather, he had a great vivid, the vivid visions of the great beings, the past gurus, meditation of deities, countless times. Upon having a vivid visions of the great beings, Lam Rim Chenmo had undertaken a great practice, engaged in a great practice, and as a result of his practice, gained a high levels of spiritual realizations. It is based on his learning, his meditations, as well as his realizations. He then composed his teachings of the Lam Rim. So the Lam Rim has a very unique qualities. Unlike other text, if you really look at this text, it is not just written by like other poets, but rather the purpose, the subject matter of this particular text is solely focused on subduing one's own mind. So therefore, when you really follow those teachings very sequentially, in the proper sequence, so then you will find how consistent it is, and how convenient it is for one to actually engage in this practice. So Lam Rim has such a unique qualities. If you really look at his teachings, the subject matter of his teachings, and proper, order of the teachings. If you really look at this, properly, the order of the teachings and so on, you will see, you'll be able to really see a great, qualities in it. Just as the great guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life by the Shantidevas is said to be a supreme among all the sutras. And similarly, the teachings of the Guhya Samaja is said to be the supreme among all the teachings of the Tantra. Yet, if you look at the teachings of this Lam Rim, the teachings, Lama Tsongkhapa's Lam Rim, so it is even more, you will see the supremacy that possesses in this particular text. It's really astonishing. So the difference, if you really look at it, then you will understand why the Lam Rim has such a quality. It's because when you look at the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, the Guide to the Bodhisattva, within the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, the way of practicing the cultivating bodhicitta is given on the basis of practice of 6 perfections. So practice of six perfection again requires a lot of prerequisites, and a lot of preparations, and pre-qualifications are required, and then then suddenly, when it comes to the practice of the Guhya Samaja, then it requires more pre-qualifications, because this cannot be, such practice of Guhya Samaja cannot be taken by someone who has not gained, who doesn't have proper understanding of the overall teachings of the Buddha. So therefore, but if you look at this particular teachings of the Lam Rim is right from the beginning to the end. This can be, the practice can be done by anyone, So that's why, how, convenient. If you really look at that, and then how, you will see this, the quality that does not possessed by any other text. So this is the greatness of the authors given in order to show that the teachings has immaculate source. And then the right way to teach and listen to the Dharma with these two greatness, the reflecting oneself on mind upon the two greatness. So the way of listening to the teachings that we have spoken earlier, it's cultivation of appropriate motivation. It's very important. So then the next outline comes the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions, which will then be followed by the sub headings of how to rely upon the guru, the qualified teacher, and having relied upon the teachers, how to listen to the teachings. So when you look at the teachings of the Lam Rim, it emphasizes on relying upon one's teacher and having relying upon one's teacher and following the instructions of the teacher. So at this point, we are under the headings of reflection upon the law of cause and effect, and having reflected upon the law of cause and effect, how one can really engage in the actions that are positive, and how one can, by recognizing the negative actions that needs to be abandoned. So we all, if we really look at our life, and all of us can obviously say that our life is beginningless. So from the beginningless time up until now, we have engaged in three different kinds of actions. That is positive, negative, and neutral. Neither of two, in other words. So if you look at if we can really, try to think about our actions up until now, the actions that we have committed, actions that we have carried out from the beginningless time up until now. Out of those three, the neither of two, which is a neutral action, will be the most action that we have undertaken. And then the second will be the negative actions. And the positive action will be the third. So negative deeds that we have committed in the past is something that is inconceivable. We can't really fathom how much negative deeds that we have done from the beginning of this time up until now. This can be, demonstrated by how one's clear nature of mind is obscured. It is completely obscured by negative deeds, and the obscurations are created by negative deeds. So since I have committed such intense negative deeds in the past, now what should I do? So when you ask the questions, what should I do with regard to the negative actions that one have committed in the past, then the practice of confession or the purification comes into picture. So let's talk about practice of bodhicitta here. So practice of bodhicitta, in order to practice bodhicitta, one needs to first of all to understand what is bodhicitta, the nature of bodhicitta. One needs to intellectually understand the way in which that you actually cultivate the bodhicitta. So once you have completely understood, have gained the intellectual understanding of this bodhicitta, one then engage in the practice, not only living at the intellectual level, but try to bring it into in the emotional levels. In order to do that, in order to complete this, to generate this bodhicitta within oneself, understanding and reading and studying alone is not sufficient condition to cultivate bodhicitta. It requires intense practice of accumulation of merits and accumulation of wisdom in insight. It's an inevitable factor for cultivating bodhicitta. So then, how can we really purify those negative deeds, negativities that we have committed in the past? And what kind of signs or the omens that one may experience as a result of engaging in the practice of purification? So whatever the actions that one may have committed, for instance, whatever actions, whether it is positive or negative, that are positive or negatives, once you have committed that actions, then the propensity of that actions will be left or deposited within the subtlemost consciousness. And subtlemost consciousness is the one that carries the propensities of all the actions. 계속 좀 뭐라고 수 있을 만. 근데 내 데이터 계속.
알레 소데스를 다라. 소데스도.
송소스나. 송 제소스. 송데스도 뭐지 봐도.
소데 도게 바올레. 바로
도게 봐.
소데 도게 바올레.
나가라 되나?
이제 강이 되게 돼.
어디 가면 어디.
강양 세도.
어디 뭐.
강양 내가 개발자와네 시샤와라 소바송라. 니 비쇼메 발라 시샤와라 시바샤데 대다마이나 리바단가 마세 도데단양 가위 가원 저로 와송도. 알아서. 개발이 지송다. 예. 주세요.
You should understand
Where are we now?
that we're on page 254, the last paragraph. You should understand that the statement, any karma at all events for the 100 years is qualified by if you have not cultivated the group of remedies. Where this is not the case, there would be a contradiction with the reason and a contradiction with the many sutras.
다 좀 뒤져야 되고로 변하러와. 아니 돌에 비네 레지 사서 손에 깨봐 자선 손아야는 취조선 콜라 도고 말해서 손도 와서 그 가려러 와래서는 뭐 좋아거고로.
So then one could argue that then why the sutra had actually mentioned that we find in the sutra, once you have committed those negative deeds, even for eons, the propensities of negative deeds will sustain within one's own mind.
이 진생여에서로 니뭐 떠지기 마다지 하와이나 니 깨봐 자손나이 저랑이 레도 매부 자그 말했다. 니뭐 마티비 못하신 손바래서.
So in the sutra, if you look at the statement that in the sutra of not sustaining or the existence of these negative deeds, the propensities of negative deeds within one's mind stand for 100 years. It's because if one has not engaged in any practice of purifications, one have not undertaken any purification practice, particularly the purification practice, what we call the four powerful purification practice, then this negative deeds, the negative karma that we have committed, will be sustained and will be actually exist within one's mind even for 100 years. You can also understand the Buddha's expressions, karma whose effects will be definitely experienced with the qualification that you have not cultivated a group of remedies. So there are two kinds of karma. It says karma whose fruit is definite and whose effect is definite, and karma whose effect is not definite.
Pena ani pena ngindo churagi ni pena nge chendele mesibi lejo na chiro jiwashima ani gigi jebede nyo nge bare sala ayina tende reba sala ora ro ani chiro le khashida jebe nyo go medu sala ora ani tende re sala wa de kare seson ni bodo ma chewa ayina ani nyo nge bare ro ni bo che ma chogi de la ba ma des teni ji shema ye mo so.
So what it really says here is, now the karma that you have committed, whose fruit is definite, which means that you will experience the consequence of one's own karma. For instance, if I have killed someone, if I have taken the life of human beings, and so the consequence is it definite for me to actually experience the consequence of one's the karma that I have committed. However, if one has the effect is very definite if one has not really engaged in the practice of remedy or the practice of antidotes, for powerful antidotes. So if you have undertaken the 4 powerful antidotes of purification practice, then even though that you have committed a karma, the result will not experience by oneself. You can also understand the Buddha's expression, karma whose effects you will definitely experience with the qualification that you have not cultivated the group of remedies. So understands the Buddha's expression, karma whose effects you will not definitely experience, refers to the effects that occurs only sometimes, even though you may not have cultivated the group of remedies. So then it refers to the effect that occurs only sometimes, even though you may not have cultivated the group of remedies. What it really means is here, again, it depends on at the time of one's actions. When you are engaging in certain actions, that actions are actually carried out by completing all those causes and conditions of accumulating the karma that becomes a complete cause for giving rise to its fruitions. So, although one may have engaged in certain actions, but if the actions are not really carried out with complete causes and conditions, though you may have engaged in these actions, but the result would not experienced by oneself. It is incomplete causes and conditions, because of the incomplete causes and conditions. This the detailed explanation of the karma that we will also explain when we go through the middling scopes. The middling scopes under the teachings of the Four Noble Truths, when this will be covered when we go through the teachings of the origin of sufferings. So what is saying here when we talk about negative karma and negative deeds and positive deeds? So negative deeds and positive deeds here, it explains in the text as a religious practice, but it is if you really think very carefully, it is not really a religious matter. It is a fact. And once you have committed the actions, whether it is positive or negative, and the agent is the one who actually experiences its result, depending upon what kind of actions that one may have committed. So one can, when it comes to the mundane rules and contemporary, rules and regulations, if one is not following that, if one does not follow the laws, one can escape from its consequences. one can deceive someone, and being able to be clever enough to cheat someone and deceive someone, so that you don't really have to face the consequences. But when it comes to the karma, we cannot deceive at all. It is beyond deception. Once you have committed the karma, the individual who committed the karma will experience the consequences without escape. We really have to be very careful, to engage in the practice, engage in the positive deeds, regardless of what kind of practice that one may undertake. Will we engage in the practice of strengthening and developing devotions and faith in Buddha, and cultivating the practice of cultivation of love and compassion for all other beings. So all of these practices are really means for becoming oneself a better person. So all the transgressions will happen, or all the negative deeds and negative karma will accumulate, either with regard to the three jewels or with regard to sentient beings. It is therefore to purify those negative deeds that we have committed with regard to three jewels, we cultivate faith, the genuine faith and devotion to the three jewels, and then engaging in the practice of cultivating love and compassion towards all other sentient beings to overcome the negative deeds committed with regard to sentient beings. So in this way, confession, restraint, and so forth weaken the capacity of karma to bear fruits. Such karma will not bear fruit even when it comes in the contact with other conditions. Likewise, it is said that anger and the production of wrong views weaken the ability of roots of virtue to give effects. So just as our purification practice will prevent the fruits of the negative karmas. Similarly, the negative thoughts and emotions, such as anger and wrong views, will prevent the result of positive deeds or the virtuous deeds. Let's take a break here again.
Riralin Jini Tegen Padi Sangye Shindu Mi Te Buwaye Jokun Namda Shingwa Shubha Guru Ranamaya Kandoya Tayami
Gewada megewe sabeji nipa nyambe kanlen trebi shi jongwan jir. Je tsoba mebe duyijang shen jona jeta na sawa ni shin tu jimba mayin te jike de aso.
Power Viveka is the place of reasons. So it says wrong. So we are going through the text. Okay. The wrong views and malice weaken the virtuous karma. Remedies such as reputations, restraint, and confession weaken bad karmas. Whenever any of these attitudes are present, they reduce the potency of the seeds deposited by the virtuous and non-virtuous karma. Even though the combination of the conditions for the karma to take effects are already in the place. So there would an efforts come from, and what would it be like? Because there is no combinations of the condition from the maintaining the potency of the seeds deposited by karma. The time for being maintained has changed. Because of this, there is through eradication of the karma, as it has been said. So what it really states here is, in order to have a result, a complete result, it requires a complete causes and conditions. Without a combination of complete causes and conditions, there won't be a complete result. That is what it means. So let's take a seed of the barley seeds. In order for the barley seeds to give rise to its fruitions, it requires a lot of causes and conditions for the seed of the barley to give rise to its fruitions, such as moist, fertile soil, and so forth, and heats and so forth. So without which the seed alone will not give rise to its fruits. So all the changes of the four seasons, such as summer, spring, winter, and so forth, and so on and so forth, and night, day, and evening, morning, and so forth. All these changes are happening because of its causes and conditions.
인류의 시용이 내치긴 좋아진 되는 로아나 이게 난 생진 좋아도 되는 제대 진용이 로아. 된도디 맞아 게이쇼는 배전 제소나 생래 대진용 거를 가르잖아. 로아. 주들建议所解决的。你좋아해 뭐 인자네 조지적고라고.
So just as the external conditions, external phenomena of a change by its own, the change is taking place is because of its own causes and conditions. Similarly, the change of one's mind is taking place because of causes and conditions. So therefore, since there's a possibility of transforming one's mind and possibility of taking a place, the transformation of taking place within the heart and emotions of oneself, one then engages in the practice of the Dharma.
저기 배나 나비게 따와 땡주세요. 계시면 땡주 라팔 계시는 전제 땡제시로와. 찌를 때네 찌 요거 인자네 맞아 저한테 생기 대두기 초아이나리 각각 찌를 때네 요로. 때네 찌를 때네 요데 찌를 때네 요로. 찌를 때는 좋아져야 체질에도. 대체리 장쇼는 제소나 대화 연구를 해야 되지 세요래다.
So therefore, if you really look at this, the happening of change, you will see that there's a rationale behind it. There's a reason behind it. According to the Buddhism, we call the philosophical standpoint is what we call the dependent originations. And it is because of this dependence, all causes and conditions, cause give rise to its conditions, so cause give rise to its fruitions, and fruit actually, generated by the causes and so forth, are all dependently or designated or dependently originated. Similarly, one's experience of happiness and sufferings are all dependent upon its own different causes and conditions. So therefore, when we look at in these situations how the cause give rise to its fruitions, and the fruit actually is generated by the cause and so forth, then you could really see there's a reason in the profound reason in the teachings of dependent originations. So then, when you speak about this cause, the cause and effect, or the dependent originations, with regard to the mind, then it explains a law of cause and effect, or karma. So if there is such possibility of changing, or changing, then one need to understand that it is through one's efforts and actions can make change. So it is therefore the great Pandit's Indian master Shantideva has stated that you yourself is your own protector and you yourself is your own foe or enemy. So let's go through the text again. Moreover, by upholding the sublime teachings, you will experience in this life the effects of a sin, whose consequences you are certain to experience and certain to experience.
당 가족이 레긴 저기 뒤용고를 이렇게 제시해줘요. 그뒤 시에도 초바송 제로로. 배나 통준 용지제 내서나 아니 최대를 산에 체면을 용어를 통준 용지제 내서 그래요. 아니 제와시말은 용어에 아니 가르래 제내 용지세로. 제와 소바 편전 용지 내다시는 용지세. 가지 가족이 저비 뒤세될 송 이게 초바지.
So then one could ask the questions, if one has committed the karma, so when will one experience its fruitions? So then that one can speak up about experiencing of these fruitions in the 3 different levels. One is the karma that you have committed will experience within this lifetime. For instance, if one has committed in karma, negative karma or the positive karma in the earlier part of one's life, then one will experience its consequences in the later part of one's life, within this lifetime, in other words. And there is another category of karma whose fruition will experience in the very next life. Then there's a third category of karma that whose fruition will experience in the not in the very next lifetime, but in the subsequent next lifetimes.
다 담비 추지 용화세디 배나 뒷박 담지 진행선으로와 담비 추지 녀보때 녀보 수치보땡이나 세디 통철라 디바 춘춘전에 말이 녀바 배는 거 나와서 세대세요로 나비 춘춘이 세왔더니 오래서.
So then by upholding the sublime dharma in intense practice of the dharma, even if one has engaged in the negative, very intense negative deeds in one's negative deeds, then just because it is because of upholding of this sublime dharma, one will experience its consequence. Not a very intense one will not experience this intense consequence of one's negative deeds, but it will be substituted by the light headache. So you may have discomforts, very light physical discomforts will be substituted by the fruit substituted. The fruit is substituted by the very light, discomforts of physical discomforts. So then you will see this in the next line. It says, and furthermore, with this remedy, karma for rebirth in the miserable realms transformed into a mere headache. So then you can, there's a question is asked with regard to the previous explanation. If karma that would otherwise result in rebirth in the miserable realms can be weakened and have the effects of becoming merely a headache, and how can this be considered a complete removal? So what the question here is to make clear is, so you have spoken about the purification practice or the remedy to one's negative karma. If one engages in the practice of engaging in the practice of applying four forceful remedies, or four forceful antidotes, one will be able to prevent the fruits of one's karma. So if this is the case, then why the individual, even though he or she has engaged in the intense practice of applying antidotes, and why such individual is still experiencing its fruitions, such as headache and so forth.
Depuis les gendrebu malepe zopa ni donghe nyansu nyongwa jowa lesa kanda ke ni donghe chamo zanya nyansu nyongwa majoba teni sawa de shumba cheta mai ngo sawala soba dele joyin drebu ye me ban jowa yang cheta yin xie so so ibar chilo sa.
So here it says, to reply this questions, the accumulating effects of your sinful karma will be experience of suffering in the hell. With the remedy, with this remedy, though you do not experience even tiny suffering in the hells, so how can this not be considered a very complete removals? Yet how could this result of headache and like the example of karma not having any effects?
단지 레데에 코 년도제비 레로 와서 년도제 마거나 년도제에 가르치는 참마세바 말이에요. 년도 저번 용어들이 년도에 세워라.
So it's very comprehensive. If we look at, if you really look at this text, it's because since you have your karma that you have committed is a karma that will give rise to its result of taking rebirth in the lower realms. So it is through one's purification practice, you are taking rebirth within the lower realms is prevented. So isn't that the remedy? Isn't that the result of one's remedy, the practice of application to antidote? It purifies one's through one's purification practice. What prevented is the result, but it does not really prevent it. The complete result. So if you have questions, or Mr. said we'll take a couple of questions. If not, he will go through the text.
I'll ask a question. In all cases, is there some result even with purification of karma, or are there cases where we don't experience a negative result at all, that it's entirely purified? And why would it be sometimes give us a mild negative effect sometimes and maybe no effect another time? That's the case. So it is again depending on the completion of its causes and conditions, actions. When one engaged in these actions, that your negative actions is completed, with the complete causes and conditions,
then through the purification practice, although you may have done an intense purification practice, such as applying the 4 forceful antidotes, you will still have a slight experiencing of this result, such as having headache and minor physical discomforts. And then, if one's causes condition is not carried out, complete causes and conditions, when one is actually engaging in that particular actions, then this kind of karma or the actions will then completely prevent its result, giving rise to its fruitions. So you will not have to go through, even a slight, physical discomforts.
Venerable, nimbu yungwaji maresana, dayang duni yungura, vener, nenda wachi chajara, saben nendichi. Nenda de meji tsisuina, tendi tsidori. Vener nenda de shagenda wachi zane, jenjeda chonsona, vener shada wachi kalasaya yang nipa yung chukura. Vener nenda chajana, ko menda wachi tsisuna, tendi meba chawari. Ko jen shenji chibi yang chi nenda de yang 제부 두지 제와 여량 샤드 저거 지사나 이 제부지 정화라 인적이 제발 여러 거 진짜 나야 참으로 와.
So let's take an example of the barley. Again, the barley, the seed. If the barley seed is completely burned, then it's gone. There's no potential for giving rise to any kind of effects. It's burned, it's already vanished. However, the barley seed, although it has some kind of effects, some kind of defects in other words, but if you leave the barley seed aside, it will give rise to some kind of its result. It may have maybe eaten by the birds and so forth. So even though that it doesn't have its own substantial, it doesn't have its potential for giving rise to its substantial result, but it has some kind of potential for giving rise to its result.
야, 지비 카데니 버토니 것도 그거기 젠지 디바 빵바나 이게 디바텐 다지 제선은 땡적 땡네 정도라.
So then if one furthermore, if one then engages in the practice of meditation on emptiness and through the realization of direct realization of emptiness, then one's negative deeds, the karma that one has committed, negative karma, is completely vanished, or not completely eradicated.
양 콜레 님부 지대와 디바마가 다빙해봐 여만다 년데시로 베나로 예 뭐뭐라지 마시베게 레데 할이요 아이나 예 니바마라 마사셔로 될 메시비 니보 때요디 양 코노 노로레 내가 이 가리슈치에서나 될 니보 카테자에 로 마세네 집에 지장미베 디노를 이 주인의 동열의 뒤승하시열의 지스타동이 채널이야 튕제 참사열의 뺀 차보러 왔네 참으로.
So it's, when it comes to the explanation of the karma, it's very subtle. The karma is the most obscure and subtlemost phenomena to be explained. So let's take an example for if I have committed, if I have engaged in the actions, and if I have a karma, negative karma that I may have taken 5 individuals' life, or I may have killed 5 individuals in my previous life or previously. But one antidotal factor will not become a remedy for all of this, karmas, because the variety of karma there's a differ. It's a difference the way of accumulating the karma. Even though that actions, when it comes to the nature of its action, that's the same, because you have engaged in the actions and taken the life of other individual. But at the time of that engaging in that actions, its completion of its causes and conditions, and the motivation factors, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. There are different ways in which that you actually accumulate the karma. The intensity of karma, it differs depending upon the time and so forth. So therefore, just one practice of remedy or antidote practice will not really become an antidote towards purifying the negativities of killing all five individuals.
Messi mangasi shaya na ko nami je debe te ya nywa ka do ko ba kan se de nyebo te yong de ya ki khate te la mero khate kharal tu me tu te ro ta de ji je ba chu chan do ma.
So it's just again when at the time of one's application of one's antidotes, time of one's application of purification practice, whichever is the antidotes that applied antidotes regarding which particular actions will be eliminated by means of one's for instance, if one is engaged in taking the life of 5 individuals, and when you are actually engaging in this particular purification practice, and you are engaging in this particular practice of purifications with regard to which particular practice of actions, which actions. So it depends on how you actually apply the antidotes towards which negative deeds.
Draw the pigeon yabo is at draw the topa chibudo, Nipo shoot chasing going to go away, yet yes and jit joke or contingent on shoot chasing going to go away, and carry change in your word. I say, so sell a topazo and tachi chanalada, thinking about a good.
So this is, you need to, one thing that you really need to think about, it is because of the purification, because of the intensity of the purification practice and one to prevent from its intrusions, or it is because of the intensity of the causes and condition of the negative deeds and so forth. So you should have a doubt within yourself and then ask the question yourself and see which one will be the relevant answer to it.
Mari chorang yelawa na yi tacha jare se lo na ri lo chogo mari ro. Tela na rani demba chag mari ro. Rani ki cheba che. Nyeba de go chong che te pe tu ni bo na go ro. Tu ni be se mari no ma de pe che lo nga. Gen ji ye tu yi rubong go la ra ye se ne sengi chi chone gen de pe tu ni go che go sa ge tu. Je da rubong go la ra yo ma ro. Ye de sengi che na ko de ji sen de hi jo de ri pa pe che ta be ta de.
So we need to come up with one's own idea and one's own understanding and one's own, way of, comprehending the teachings and so forth. So therefore, you should not really rely upon someone who said this is completely, 100% right, and then you just take it without, undergoing any analyzations. You should analyze yourself. So therefore, in the one of the teachers at our monastery would be very happy if one of his students would claim that a rabbit has a horn, because rabbit will not have a horn at all. But he, based on his own reasoning and his own way of thinking, that if he says the rabbit has a horn, the teacher will be delighted. And he used to be really delighted because he knows that he is, really thinking critically and coming his own reasonings why the rabbit would actually have horn.
Mindu karichera sana ne ha ko maso. Nga yi che mindu te chinsen ya de jin ma ro. Jela ya go che go mar da go no go.
If you say no, then if you say this rabbit has no horn, then teacher would not be pleased without any reasoning. If you say, because I don't know, because I haven't seen, this is not going to be the correct reasoning. So let's do the dedications. We'll start today. What is dedication? You're actually, dedicating, or you're actually, you're depositing your just like some kind of material object that you have. Thank you. Material object that you're depositing on the depository.
Jala Kari Jogo, Malachu, Jala Kari, getting on the Tuesday, Gila, so Gila gets a chapel, take it from the Gison to Sabi, Yawana, and you shoot it down, and you Sanja Shanju Samana, you are Rigid Nasha, and he gets at 10 on getting you want show.
So, what you're dedicating here is you're dedicating your entire merits, just as dedicated by the great beings in the past, such as bodhisattvas and so forth, until to gain one's own state of enlightenment. So therefore, may I too, deposit all my merits and virtues for the benefit of all other beings until I gain the state of enlightenment. So what is important that we need to think about is to dedicate all our merits for the sustaining of the life of the great masters, of all the religions. So why? It is because they are the one who causes the world peace and the peace of mind of entire beings. So the doctrines and the teacher who actually provides the happiness of all other beings, who shows the path, unmistaken path, to the achievement of happiness, should sustain their life, and we must dedicate our merits towards sustenance of their life and longevity of those beings. So this is how we should dedicate our merits and virtue.
Yahweh, yi la pe te shin, ye wei se hua rin tu zhong yu qi, lam san zhu bei tun jian zhu xie qin, ye tian se jie mi tang me mi gun, ce ra kun tu ye wei ngang pa yi, man tan zhe hua ma ju xi, kan se zhen hua shu la chu chu chu, si xin zhu la song pa ti yi ce, tu dian an ji ta tu zhu xie qin, zha xi ge so chu gun zhap yu yi. Ma me kyu ce rak ten shin, nam ka chun lei chu shu tie pa dang, lo sang ten pe zhu me sa sung yi, zhu wei mun sel ta tu lin yu qi. Gan ri wa wei ko wei shin kang zi, pen dan de wa ma li zhong wei ne, chen lue si huan ten zin ya so ye, sha pe si te pa tu ten yu qi. Zhang pel pa wo shi ta chen pa dan, kun tu san po de yan de shin te, te ta kun ti je su ta kop xie, ye wa de ta tam xie ra tu mo, 谢黑给我堂前